Pope Francis. What does Pope Francis say? In his letter, Joy of Love, he highlights the importance of the initial scripting of the young age and adolescence. He's referring here particularly to parents, but I think it also applies to our role modeling, our role as teachers, or what I call stand-in parents. Let's read quickly what he says. Pope Francis says, it's about hardware. This is a document is written after the family. Certain inclinations develop in childhood and become so deeply rooted that they remain throughout life, either as attractions to a particular value or a natural repugnance to certain ways of acting. Many young people think and act in a certain way because they deem it to be right on the basis of what they learned, as if by osmosis from their earliest years. That's how I was taught. That's what I learned to do. In the family, we can also learn to be critical about certain messages sent by various media. First quotation. The second, when children and adolescents are not helped to realize that some things have to be waited for, they can become obsessed with satisfying their immediate needs and develop the vice of wanting it all now. This is a grand illusion which does not favor freedom, but weakens it. On the other hand, when we are taught to postpone some things until the right moment, we learn self-mastery and detachment from our impulses. That's a wonderful quotation from Pope Francis for an educationist. Impulses. That's what's moving our young people. So basically, what are we saying? Those words have come out kind of blurred. We are asking, are you wired for fire or fired for hire? We need the heart on fire, but for higher motives. Forgiveness, pardon, good stewardship with the talents given to us, justice, courage to stand up for what is right. For me, that largely summarizes what I hope I have convinced you, a deep scripting of the heart. So how do we improve our systems? We must address our formation systems. That's how we enhance these gospel values. What I'm calling this installing of the applications. We must set up systems that create a culture. The way we form these young people. Here I think we can see what it is we can add to our usual routines and where we can interface to connect more with the hearts of the students. What I'm calling hardware. Unfortunately, the script has merged together in this projection, so I hope you can read. Can you see most of it, right? So it has merged together. I'm sorry about that. The first is that formation system. How do we get to their hearts? The second system that we must enhance is the content of that formation we want to give them. What's the content? What are we selling to them? Those values we want appreciated and loved by the students. Charity and care. D&A major string is charity. Order and diligence. Truthfulness and honesty. Respect and courtesy. Justice and mercy. All those which have been written all there are speaking about those major values that we must install as valuable. Valuable. You must sell the values as valuables, treasures. When you sell values as cheap change, then they will no longer be values. That's why they go to other fake jewels, plastic necklaces, because you've sold your diamonds as cheap change. Nowadays, you can't distinguish the women necklaces that are real and Chinese. They all look the same. But believe me, there's a huge difference. And the women know. The third system is defense system that we must install. How do we defend these kids from being influenced by these viruses that are all encroaching on them? This is about building their fortitude and conviction. One of those four down there: temperance, fortitude, prudence, justice. You must make these kids tough. And one of the areas, we're going to touch on it now as we go towards the conclusion, is sports. Resistance to pain, to suffering, and endurance makes these kids tough. Fortitude. When you have softies, when we easily compromise to softies, Pope Francis calls it sofa set Christianity, then don't be surprised that they are attracted like a spoiled cat by a piece of meat. So, the main method we have in our schools is by recognizing value, those good values, in the rewarding outstanding or merely attempted good action. A student who is normally untidy, who one day comes out somehow neat, needs rewarding. Don't just reward the super neat everyday kid. He needs. But you need to encourage. You need to make it stand out. I've given this example many times, and I'm sure Mr. Muheria will remember. In every meeting almost I seem to mention it. That kid in the Harambee in St. Charles Luanga School, one of the guests dropped 10,000 shillings. And this kid brought to the principal the envelope, 10,000 shillings. And the principal announced, is there any guest who's dropped an envelope of 10,000 shillings? This is in a boys' school. I said, for once, I felt rewarded. This is a Catholic school. Something Catholic has got at least one student. If it was a teacher, ameangukiwa, ameponyoka. How much do we reward? I constantly keep asking Muheria, did we reward that kid? He always tells me, yes. Maybe I should constantly say, he should be constantly over and over rewarded. I don't know. It's a recognition that must stand out to the others. That honesty pays. So, we must create a culture by rewarding virtues. And the school's culture is created by the principal and the teachers. That is why it's important to spend time transmitting that in real life and then in word. Mentoring is not something theoretical. It is a living transmission. It's something that has to be seen lived. It's like swimming. You don't teach swimming by explaining, you do like this, you go to the water, once you're in the water, you do like this, and then the legs, you do like this. Do you understand? Yes, okay, jump into the pool. Swimming is done by actually showing and accompanying the swimmer. That's what we must do with our kids. So we must recognize the markedly and resounding good actions and virtues, And not only the heroic actions. We always go for the heroic actions. We're speaking about those merely random acts that we notice are good. We must be generous in rewarding random good actions. That's how we are installing the values. The values is not just about explaining and convincing them in the head. It is fundamentally a heart thing. It's something that is in your heart. It's a conviction. It's hardware. And unless you reach there, we are still on the surface. Our kids will still be easily influenced to do those atrocious acts. If you spot one of these kids doing a good deed, helping in the field, picking a paper that is thrown down, serving in the dining hall, taking notes for a sick student who is in bed, helping regularly the disabled one in your school, reward him. If you notice one of the boys' school who is outstandingly gentlemanly when the girls are around, reward him. Yes, it's not enough to tell them, deal with the girls with a gentlemanly way, you know. But when you see this guy is really a gentleman, reward him. When you realize this girl is really a lady, reward her. That's how you fight the twerking. It's not just about telling them, don't. It's about the one who knows and the one who dances with grace. Reward her. Boeing 767, they have simulators. Simulators means you have this guy in a simulation of the landing of any airport in the world. And you have at the side the trainer and this young one trying to learn how to land. And they are able to simulate torments and wind, but the one who gives confidence is a trainer until this one knows how to land. We must be trainers. They revise every trip. Revise what you're going to tell the kids on Friday assembly. I will repeat that. Revise what you're going to tell the kids on Friday assembly. Don't do it on your feet. Sasa, how are you, young gentlemen? And you don't know what you're going to tell them. Then you start now stories of the giants, as they say in my background, telling stories which have no sense. Have a precise idea you want to tell them. Work on your Friday message. Inscribe it. Don't just tell them off. Find a story. Find something. You may not be very inspirational in your speeches. Read. Just find a way you can communicate to them in your Friday message. The role of mentorship for the principal, here I've put many things, I don't want to speak about them. It's about the reward and inscribing is about one, rejection of things. We've here the drugs put there. But this is what the Pope told us. We must help them reject, not tell them to reject. Assist them to reject because they are convinced that those are anti-values. How do you sell that those are anti-values? Then you must help them accept because they see they are good, positive, appreciated, and help them become leaders. Those elements. There is a process which is there in that triangle, which I won't go through, of assisting these people enter into a system whereby eventually they will have it ingrained in them. They will remember, they will work for it. Sculpturing of this character then, for the organizers, I asked for only 7 minutes. The strength of virtue, an example of the principle. The vain values, we know we're going to speak about. But the innovativeness of the principle and the power of influence, for him to influence positively, is absolutely important. It's about making these people repeat the good acts and acquire virtues by repeating the good actions. What is called here random acts of kindness, of virtue. To make them a heart that knows, not just a person who obeys, but a heart that knows what is expected to be done. A habit that becomes habitual for them to act. And that, I insist, is something that is sold now by frequency, by example, by reward. This role modeling of the principle is something that I want to emphasize. Already we spoke a lot last time about the DNA. But here I'm speaking about how the principle can be very inspirational or anti-inspirational. Because the principle's life and style is a source of purifying waters in the schools. So woe on him or her if the source itself is polluted. We need to sell charity because the principle believes. You need to inspire virtue in the staff room. All of you know that character there who's just appeared, big-headed guy, who is always fighting with Betsuda. We need to inspire in the class. The principal needs to inspire in the class. If the principal's classrooms are boring, you've lost your connectedness to the heart of the student. If the kids, I'm sure none of your kids falls asleep like this in your classes. But nonetheless, if the kids are so bored, the principal's role is compromised. And this process, I'm rushing through the whole process that is there about bringing these ideas and inscribing them in their behavior. These are all diagrams that most of you are familiar with, about how you actually inscribe, program, predispose, install those values in the kids is fundamentally through what they observe. And the principle is one of the major influencing parts of this observation. Therefore, as we go towards conclusion, I must apologize. For whatever reason, our computer here has changed my slides, but I hope you'll be able to see them. I want to make a few concrete suggestions of this. Because we must shift the understanding of our kids from a currency of wealth and fame, Sonkoism, which is greed, which is unethical seeking of riches, which is inscribed in these kids now by the society. Sonkoism has become very fashionable. Nataka kuwa kamsonko. It doesn't matter where I get the money from. So what are we meant to do? As I say, this computer has a bit messed up our writing there, but nonetheless, we have concrete that we must change this currency, which is the lowest currency in life, and make them appreciate the higher currency, a Christian currency, that is going to multiply even the money you get and the worth of what you are. Integrity, respect, humility, care, service. That at first in short term may seem unattractive, but are absolutely important. Is it not important now when it's not just about winning, it's about empathy, it's about feeling with others, it's about lifting what is around you. concrete suggestions. Hardware applications in our schools. What can we do? I have about 9 of them to suggest, and I go through them quickly. First, creating one-on-one moments with students. This is something that the teachers must do. But above all, in a discreet way, the principal must also do. One-on-one with students. It doesn't matter, maybe 2 seconds, when watching football, when walking, when you meet. Suggesting a change of paradigms from the officious approach we have to our students to a middle ground, where you are able to speak to the students and they are able to listen to you at a certain level of confidence. The second, the power of sports. Careful choice of your sports masters. Sports is one of the most influential areas of character building. Sports is one of the shortcuts to the hearts of these kids. And if the sports master is smart, he's able to get back feedback from these kids and able to install many elements, including teamwork, in these kids through the sports. Careful with the choice you make of your choice of your sports masters. 3, community service projects. All our schools should have service projects. I'm even proposing a lot. I'm saying not just as a school, but as classes. Every time, let them do a community service. Let them get in touch with the needy, serving an environment that is in difficulty. 4th, the example of the principal, picking papers. Meaning, tame these kids by inspiring, not by domineering. 5th, inspirational, character, moral, and human courtesy talks that we must engage in our schools. Look at the alumni from your schools. Look at the priests and the sisters who have got a good way to reach your students to come and talk to them. Sell human courtesy. Sell morality. Don't just bring people to condemn immorality. Bring them that they can polish the jewel, the valuable. Don't come to rubbish the rubbish. Come to sell the diamond. 6th, win the teachers into mentorship. Our teachers seem to have fallen into simple robotic service. Everyone defending them, saying that they work very hard, saying that they sacrifice a lot. I think you do. But I think the truth of the matter, the teacher today is more individualistic and selfish as compared to the teacher in 1980, without prejudice. Am I being too harsh? We must be less selfish and more selfless. We are too much praised. We are still running on the gains of our grandparents, well, our parents who are teachers. The good image of the teachers, we still think that we are that good teacher, but many times we fall into a very selfish teacher. And that's why he will not bring his daughter or son into his or her school. Food for thought. 7th, use outings and entertainment to form. Now here is another virus looming danger, the outings. And the teachers that accompany the kids for the outings. And the rules that apply in the outings. And the objectives expected from the outings. Which are they? Sometimes you say, no, this kids need to unwind. So the principal closes the eyes to whatever has happened in there. Provided they don't get into any big mischief, it's okay. It's not okay. That is an opportunity to forge and install values. The person going with them is a major challenge. The teacher must know how to make it attractive, to understand that we are going here, we have our school's pride that we must maintain in this particular competition. We have a school's pride we must maintain in this boys' school. So girls, style up. Boys, style up. And if you do, I am sure we will reward you on our way. The best behaved outing group. Then the others are things you already do. Have weekly and monthly themes and topics. Prepare your Friday address very well. Think it through, not just as one piece, but as a weaving of the whole term. What is your aim this term and where? Read books, search for material. Birmingham University has got a lot of material on leadership, on virtues and molding. Very many universities. Recently also, University of Pamplona is published it in English. There are universities that are working on this. There's a book recently, I think you may have also got a book on leadership, virtuous leadership. Read and digest and then bring it out in your own way. Your address on Friday has to be waited for by your students. They're longing to hear what you have this Friday. That's how you mold their hearts. Conclusion. What do we do? Deep mentorship is needed. Dear principals, let us rethink our paradigms when facing with the breakdown of Christian values among many of our young people in order to ably install hardware applications. We need to listen to them and win them from the heart. We are being asked to style up and step up our game innovatively. Much as we are already having programs directed to religious formation and prayers, we need to reinforce and repackage them so that we make the virtues recognizable and attractive. This is what we mean by rethinking how we install virtues through recognition systems. Well thought prayer moments can help tame the wildness and give opportunity for reason and objective dialogue. Listen to the themes of the prayers of the students. Pray with the students whenever you can, as you will discover their worries, their aspirations. Speak to the priest who comes to speak to the students, to say Mass there, so that they can attend to the students, understanding them and avoiding preaching against the students or preaching against authority. Make them go to the heart more. Make them think about Christ's reaction. Homilies that invite to dialogue and maturity in the problems. And like sports, we need to develop capacity, muscles. Principals need to lead in this exercise of virtue. In order to build virtue muscles or mercy muscles, we must find opportunities so that these kids are exercising it. Then our antidote in this anti-value atmosphere is not force or mere rules, but a proactive effort to create a school culture that inoculates the young from immoral epidemics, meaning inside out. Hardware application. Not merely punish evils, but highlight the good that is there in the students. Finally, like Pope Francis, we need to inspire the youth and instill joy and hope and optimism in them. If we give them hope, they are ready to make some sacrifices and to commit to some good. May the Lord bless our efforts so that we can learn, we can really form good daughters and sons of God. Whether we end up in having just mere carbon as our product from our schools, or whether we end up in having a diamond, both of them have the same raw material, carbon, depends on the process we apply. The diamonds of virtues and godliness really depend on the environment we create and the efficacy with which we apply ourselves in making these values attractive and lasting in the hearts and the lives of these kids. Creating situations in our schools, a system that will deeply influence them in how they see the world and how they see others. But that requires effort, just like producing diamond, pressure and heat, and some pain, like the making of diamonds. That's what we are here for, dear principals. Let's launch ourselves to install this hardware in our kids that will give them a homing device for good. Thank you. God bless you.
Wonderful presentation. In fact, Your Lordship, before I invite Mrs. Ancelia Njiru to give a vote of thanks, I want to say that personally, you have rejuvenated my hope. I was almost retiring because of the stress in that office. But you have given me one more chance in my life. And this is because you have told me, or you've rather told us, that that child we are talking about originally is not lost. That child we are talking about originally is not a sinner. And that the child we are talking about is not originally a wrongdoer. Imenipa matumaini sana. I'm a principal in a boys' school. And I don't know about the girls, but we have a big challenge in the boys' school. So this one has really given me hope. So without wasting much time, I take this opportunity to invite Mrs. Njiru to give a vote of thanks. Karibu.
Yes, colleagues, I'm Miss Njiru. That's why His Lordship is laughing, because he knows me as Miss Njiru. Your Lordship, Right Reverend Anthony Muheria, the Bishop of Kitui, who was once our Bishop, Embu Diocese, the KCCB Education Commission, all protocols observed, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Good afternoon once more. Yeah, I was given a very humble task to thank His Lordship, Right Reverend Anthony Muheria, who has done a wonderful job for us. Last year, he gave us the DNA of our Catholic schools. Today, he has strengthened us with the moral values or installation of moral values in our schools. What has gone on this term It's a challenge to all of us to ask ourselves where as a society we have gone wrong. And if we follow what he has given us, then we will transform the youth. And because I'm not here to give a speech, kindly members, I will ask you to arise. We shower the bishop with the blessings of rain. We love rain in our society. And after the rains, we'll give him a bouquet of flowers. He loves neatness. Thank you. So we